Hey everyone, it's Corey of Blue Falcon Board Gaming. If you're new to the channel, I'm a United States Marine Corps veteran who started the Blue Falcon Board Gaming group in the Ohio, Kentucky, West Virginia tri-state area with the hopes of promoting positive mental health through board gaming, as well as to make board games more accessible to the community by hosting and co-hosting free events. Today, I am joined by Sharon Goza. Sharon, welcome.
Hi, thanks
So,
for
Sharon,
asking me.
absolutely. I played your game at Charcon, and on like round two of five, I backed it. So
I
I was
appreciate
super
it.
excited. I really wanted to talk to you. So you want to introduce yourself and maybe give us who you are outside of the board game world first?
Okay, so my name is Sharon Goza. Outside of the board gaming arena, I started working at NASA while in college. So I started in my early 20s and I worked there for 37 years and then decided to retire and take my passion into the gamification of education realm because that's what I was doing at NASA. So throughout my career, I started in computer graphics. So back when computer graphics was line drawings and basically raster graphics is what they called it. I started then, went into the 3D graphics and wrote one of the first simulation engines is what we called it at the time, not game engines, but basically a precursor to Unity Unreal that NASA used for many years for their simulation and training. And then went into documenting shuttle launches through graphics and bringing science down to earth through animation and explanations on that. And then that segued into, after the shuttle program ended, working for the International Space Station Program Office, trying to get the word out as to what they did and how they did it and how that benefited humanity. So the problem was stuck to me and I said, well, let's go ahead and make some games. So for NASA, I started in making education outreach games at that point in my career. There's several in the mobile markets. There's one called Space Science Education, Plants in Space. There's NASA Science, Humans in Space. And there's the precursor to the board game that I developed called To the Moon and Beyond. So I that was part of my gaming at NASA. And then I said, well, let's take our corporate training and try to make it fun, use game mechanics. So I did some preliminary training programs for the astronaut corps as to get new astronauts familiar with the internal of the space station and how they had to unpack and put logistics away. So we had a small little game that we did as a proof of concept. And interestingly, out of that was born gamification of anti-harassment training. So for that one, we did a story on a 3D printer. And if you answered all of the anti-harassment situations correctly, then the printer would print a nice hamburger. And if you answered them wrong in varying degrees, the printer might blow up and burn up or scoop goo all over. And so added some interesting things for that because people were going back to playing the game for the training and just to see if they could make the printer blow up. So
Just intentionally answering wrong.
actually, and then I did some gamification of ethics training through a story based, and that's actually publicly available on the USDA ethics website. So, and then I decided, I've been doing this for NASA for a long time and I really enjoy it. And the funding is drying up and they don't really want to pursue it further. So I'm going to retire and go into it myself. So I started a company called Game to Learn, where I do majorly the learning and development and adding game mechanics to corporate training. But one of the outcomes from our To the Moon and Beyond was everybody liked the paper prototype. So that's how I ended up with 5 years to Mars. I asked the lawyers and said, can I take this and make it into a board game? And they said, sure. So that's where I am today.
Very nice. So have you always been into board games, or was that kind of like discovered later on in life? How did you get into physical copies
I've
of
been a
games?
gamer since I was yay high. I fondly remember every Sunday night, my family would get together and play cards and have pizza. So started out with a lot of card playing, a lot of pinochle and bridge and some other various card games. And I cannot remember not having games available to play. So I've been gaming since I was little. And now, I mean, I'm very active with my gaming group, and I go to Gen Con, I go to Origins, I run games at both conventions, I run games at the local Alacon at Bryce University, and yeah, just have never been without them.
Awesome. So what got you into, you kind of hit it on a little bit. So what made you want to design a board game once you retired out of doing all your work at NASA? Was it just people's reaction to the prototypes, or were you kind of like, oh, this is going to be my next step? What made you finally, push the button on Kickstarter to launch?
So the thing that really inspired me was seeing people play the paper prototype of the game and just them going, oh, this would make such a great game. This would make such a great game. That kind of pushed me in that direction and said, what the heck, I'll try it. And my son's, his degree is in game design. So I came up with the concept, and, I took it one step further, said, okay, we need to get this cooperative. We need to get this more players, because the mobile game's a solo game. So he and I sat down and said, okay, how can we do this? And came up with ideas, and then play tested and tweaked and play tested and tweaked and play tested. And yeah, and came up with this. And then I started playing it with the local gaming group, having them play it. And they're like, yeah, this is really fun. And then I took it to Origins my first time, back at the fall Origins, the one right kind of at the end of the pandemic. Everybody's masked up, nobody wants to play. Put it on the thing. At the time, it was called To the Moon and Back, I think was the first name of the game, and sold out. I was like, okay. And then everybody played it and everybody loved it. And I was like, well, maybe I can make a run of this. And did some more tweaks, got an artist who's a friend of mine that I've worked with for my learning and development stuff, and had a couple other people that I talked to who advised that the moon wasn't sexy enough anymore, make it Mars. And I'm like, it's no big deal, right? It's just the theme of the game, so I can change it. So I made it Mars and got all the artwork, and then started making Game Crafter, making things and prototypes, and went back to the con, and here I am today.
So it's on Kickstarter right now. We are looking at July 25th, and I believe it currently has 15 days left. You've got about 5,000 raised so far. What do you want people to know about the Kickstarter, about the game? What's your little pitch for them to go get them on Kickstarter?
So if you like fairly easy mechanic games with educational content, with really good ties back to NASA, because all of the project cards in the game are NASA technology. The real things that NASA's done or people have done with NASA technology, things that benefit us. And if you like reading that sort of thing, if you like a little bit of snarky government plugging cards, then you'll enjoy that too. And because it plays 1 to 6, you can play it solo. You can play it with everybody else. It's balanced through 1 to 6. It plays very well on those. And also you can play it cooperatively. And the cooperative rules work really well as well. So it's kind of an all-around thing. And you don't have to be a big, heavy gamer. It's not a Scythe. It's not a Terraforming Mars. But something to just sit down and play and have fun with your friends.
And if anybody's scared about like the educational side of it and that might turn them off or anything, I am a complete monkey and I had a blast with it. So, I don't want anybody to be like, oh, I don't want to play an educational game. There's educational stuff in it that you can look at, but it's not like you're in school playing a game or anything like that. So
right.
I had a blast with it. Chris from Stooge Gamers, he laid it out and had everything set up, and I, signed up for it on the convention's website. And we got there and like the print was really small across the table. And I was like, oh no, I don't know what these cards do. And then I realized, oh, that's just like the education part of it. That's the flavor text. I just need to pay attention to like these really big icons on the cards. I don't have to be able to read that across the tables. Once we got into it, I had a blast with it. So you want to tell people how it kind of plays a little bit?
Sure. So it's you have 5 years to get your Martian program done. You have 8 mission objectives. You have a rocket to launch you. You have an orbital station. You have a Mars base, rovers, robotics, human life support, and a return vehicle. And you have to complete all 8 objectives in order to get your mission to Mars and back. Now, if you're playing cooperatively, to win, you have to make all 8 objectives. If you're playing competitively and at the end of 5 years, nobody completes their objectives, then the person with the farthest along the tracks win. But you do this because the government's nice and they'll give you 20 space bucks, affectionately known as spucks. So they give you 20 space bucks a year. And with those 20 space bucks, you can fund research topics, which you can put on your International Space Station bays, of which you have 5, unless somebody sabotages you. And those research topics give you discounts to projects that you fund. And when you fund a project will help you further your mission objectives. So each project card has icons on it. On the left-hand side, there are the mission icons, and on the bottom, they're category icons. So there's 2 ways to advance your missions. Each mission icon advances your mission 1 step, and the categories you make sets with. So there's 4 categories. There's STEM, Earth, Science, and Exploration. And if you get 4 of a kind at the end of the year, then you advance in those tracks. Or if you get 1 of each, then you can advance any mission objective 1. So each mission objective takes 6 points to complete. The person that completes it first will get to go into the first slot, which is a tiebreaker at the end of the game. So the way you get money to do this, other than the 20 space bucks that the government gives you, is each project gives you income as well. So when you fund a project, it's just like you would fund something here. You fund it and you make money selling that to somebody else as well as using it yourself. So that you get an income for that. So that's how you get more money during the year. But it's not all fun games and straight, because people have action cards, and the action cards can sabotage other players or help you or stop people from sabotaging you. And then also in the project deck, depending on how hard you want the game, you can put any number of event cards from 0 to 13 in, and the event cards affect everybody at the table. So the event cards are things like hurricane hits. So if you have satellites in your research base, so if you're conducting satellite research, you can mitigate that. You also have things like sound bites taken out of context. So your astronaut said something in an interview and people interpreted it incorrectly. And if you have public relations being funded, then you can mitigate that. Otherwise, you have to pay a fine. So the events are global to everybody. There are action cards that can stop those, and they can stop them for yourself, or they can stop them for everybody. So whether you want to be nice or not, you can do that. So every year you go around and you have to spend money. If you don't spend money, you have to give it back to the government. So you can play an action card and then spend money on either buying another action card, buying a research card, or funding a project. And once you spend money, play passes to the next person. And you keep going around until you're out of money for the year. Once everybody's out of money for the year, then that year's over, you tally your points, and you go on to the next year. So that's the gist of the game.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really fun with, we'd be working on something or we'd be working on some sets, and then there was an event card that came out and it screwed everybody's plans up. We're like, oh, if we give up this one, then we're going to lose this amount of points. But if I give up this one, then I can't complete this. And The event cards were nice. I think we only had about maybe 6 in the deck. I don't think we went a full 13.
Mhm.
Um, but whenever they came out, it was just kind of collective groans. What's the kind of like what's the plan with the Kickstarter and everything? Who are you going through with the manufacturer? What was your experience trying to set that up with you being the first time board game creator here? What's been your experience with figuring out manufacturing and logistics and shipping and all of that kind of stuff?
Yeah. So when I went to Origins a couple years ago, I think it was the last time that Indie Game Alliance was at Origins. I went and talked to them and just said, okay, what do I do? What do I need to do? And they said, well, we help out people, indie game developers, and you can join our alliance. And so I did, and I had several consulting calls with the Indie Game Alliance consultant, and they helped me set it up and line everything up. I thought I was ready to launch probably over a year ago, and he said, "No, let's put the brakes on it. Let's take a look at this. Have you thought of, the manufacturing? Have you thought of this? Have you thought of that?" And of course, there was a lot of things I hadn't thought of. All I thought was, let's just go ahead and make games. So right now, if it funds, I'm looking at, I originally really wanted to get it all manufactured in the United States, and looking into the cost for that, it's not cost effective. Even through Game Crafter, if I offered it on Game Crafter, it would cost everybody $85 to buy a small little box card game. So I ended up getting bids from companies in China to do the manufacturing, and I've got a fulfillment company that I'm looking at for shipping, and I've also got the company that gets all of the addresses and checks all of those, and so everybody's lined up and ready to go for funds. So that's not bad. The biggest challenge has just been getting the word out, the marketing, and I thought I put enough money into marketing, and I guess right now it's lagging, and I'm not happy about that. But I'm going to Gen Con, and I'm speaking at Trade Day for about games and education, and then I'm going to do some demos at Gen Con and also do some full playthroughs at Gen Con. So hopefully I can garner enough following to get it all funded. But it's marketing is a lot harder than I had hoped. Like I said, I've run at a bunch of conventions, and I've got Board Game Geek ads, I've got Facebook ads, I've got, I'm on a bunch of forums and stuff, and no matter how much I post, I'm still lagging as to where I wanted to be. So hopefully that'll kick into gear when I go to Gen Con. I'm speaking at Trade Day about education and gaming, and then I'm also doing demos at the Indie Game Alliance booth and running full sessions of the game. So we'll see if we can push it over the edge. If not, I can regroup, figure out if I want to do it a different way.
Yeah, I'm working on a game right now, and I'm in that process of getting quotes from different manufacturers and stuff. And there's so much that went into it that I never thought of whenever I bought a game and took it to game night. I'm just like, oh, this is a thing that already exists,
Yeah.
as opposed to trying to figure out the freight shipping and the distribution and the artwork and the graphic designer. I didn't know that artists and graphic designers aren't necessarily the same thing, and not all artists do graphic design. So I'm like, oh, I got to hire 2 people to do this now. So I thought it was going to be one. So it's been a lot. Are you doing the first exposure hall or anything at Gen Con, or are you just doing everything through the Indie Game Alliance?
No, I'm doing the kind of elevator pitches through the Indie Game Alliance.
Okay.
And a friend of mine is actually running in the Game Base 7 area as full demos.
Okay.
They
Awesome.
they want too much money to do first exposure tables.
Mm. Yeah, I could see them using that as a price point or something at Gen Con with it being so big.
Uh,
Yeah. So what games have you played recently that you kind of like want to get back to the table, or that you're itching to get back to the table? Has there been anything that's popped up at your family game night?
yeah, so at Origins, I picked up Atlantis Rising,
Okay.
which is 1 to 7 cooperative. It's kind of a fun game where you are an Atlantean and you're trying to get all of your people out of Atlantis before it floods. So that's been kind of fun. And then on Amazon Prime Day, I found Plunder, which is a pirate ship game, and it's really simple mechanics. You have ships and you go around and you're trying to get plunder points and fight other ships and conquer islands and find treasure. And I'm really lousy at it, but we have a lot of fun with it. But yeah, so we've played those recently. That, and then the other one, Wandering Towers, I think is what it's called. And it's got mages and towers, and you all go around in a circle, and you're trying to get your little mages into the Raven's Tower while people are covering up your mages so they can't move and making potions. So that's a fun little game too. But I've played pretty much anything. My gaming group, we have about 6, 5 to 6 constantly. So I'm kind of disappointed that most of the games out there now are 1 to 4.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes it hard to find a game for our gaming group to play. So I'm constantly on the lookout for 1 to 6 games, or 2 to 6, 3 to 6, anything that would play up to 6. But I have shelves and shelves and shelves of games.
Yeah, I'm sitting. I got to add a bunch of them to my BGG stats but I'm sitting at probably about 415, 420 for all of my games right now.
Wow.
I've got 2 of the Billy bookcases and 2 of the Calexes that are completely full. So I need to figure something out. So yeah, Spots has been a lot of fun, and then Lost Cities. It's a 2-player only game, or it's Lost Cities, the card game, and I've had a ton of fun with it on BGA, but I keep getting beat very badly, like -40 to 200. And I'm like, I've done something wrong.
Sounds like me trying to play Splendor.
Yeah.
Like, darn it.
Yeah, I want to try a Splendor Duel. I've heard a lot of good stuff about it, but I haven't tried Splendor Duel or Seven Wonders Duel. I've played both of the base games, but I haven't tried the 2-player variants alone. All right. Well, Sharon, I appreciate it. Is there any social medias that you want to plug? Is there any websites, anything like that?
Just my Kickstarter. Yeah. Check out the game, check out the Kickstarter. It's got a fun intro video, and you can see all the gameplay on there. And it is on Tabletop Simulator too. So
okay,
if you want to try it out on Tabletop Simulator, if you go to the Kickstarter and you go down to the bottom, there is a link to it. There's also a link at the bottom to the mobile games, the NASA mobile games. So if you like short little mobile games and want to fly through the International Space Station, go for it.
Sounds great. And your website was game2learn.net?
Game with the number 2 learn.net.
Awesome. All right. Well, Sharon, I appreciate the time.
Thank you. Appreciate you asking.
Absolutely.